Yes, I can see you. Okay.
Good evening, brothers and sisters. Welcome to Sankofa Videos and Books. Round of applause for coming out tonight. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's event for the baby ancestors of Gaza, a book talk with Julia Wright and Professor Greg Thomas. Of course, we host engaging events like this all the time, so if you miss any of these events, my steady-handed camera woman today, Bemnet, will be getting all the footage. Got our guy Bell back there. Applause for both of them. Thank you very much for y'all efforts. We'll be uploading all of these and any event that we do at Sankofa's YouTube page. You can find that at Sankofa VB. And to stay in tune for more events, check us out at sankofa.com and at our social media handles, Sankofa DC. My name is Jonathan. I'm one of the curators here at the bookstore, so please feel free to take a look at this lovely selection. And if you have any questions, ask me or any of my colleagues. Few quick rules of thumb before we get started. You want to hold the microphone like this, and as you can see, I got myself pretty close to it. Project, and then everyone can hear what you got to say. If you got any questions during the Q&A, sound like a plan? Cool. Also, please do us a favor and put your phones on silent or vibrate just to ensure that we don't get any random interruptions. Now, as we're doing that, we're still taking donations for our two drives, which is one for the book, for the building expansion, and the other for the films that we've got going on. Well, the owner particularly has going on with Black Lions, Roman Wolves, which is nearing the finish line, and the Maroon Project. So please definitely feel free to ask more questions about that if you'd like to donate. So upcoming events, March 21st from 8 to 10, Before the British, the Political Foundations of Pre-Colonial Uganda, which is a discussion with Brian Mushana Kwesiga. And on the 22nd from 7 to 9, in perfect theme and alignment what we've got going on tonight, it's going to be our On Our Mind series. This go-around is going to be Gaza on Our Mind. So definitely drop by for that. It's going to be spectacular. March 26th, Mixtape, a memoir. It's going to be a book talk with author John Zell Anderson, and it will be moderated by Paula G. Akinwole. We also have recurring events such as the aforementioned On Our Mind, as well as New Age Open Mic Poetry, which is a nice poetry showcase done by the Howard students across the street. A lot of them freshmen, so they're definitely worth their weight in talent for sure. Crescent Moon Nights as well, which has been with us for over a decade. That's every first Saturday of the month. And again, the aforementioned On Our Mind series, which is every other Sunday from 7 to 9. And now, without further ado, introducing first, from whereabouts unknown, Julia Wright is the elder daughter of the late African-American novelist, journalist, and poet Richard Wright. Yeah, that Richard Wright. Author of, that's one of my favorite authors. So, an honor, seriously. Wherever you are, an honor. Like, I've read so many of his books. I love his work. And she is the descendant of the survivors of the 1919 Elaine massacre through her lynched great uncle Silas Hoskins. Julia is a Pan-Africanist. She served under Kwame Nkrumah until the CIA abetted coup d'etat in Ghana in 1966. She subsequently worked for James Forman and SNCC and went on to attend the first cultural Pan-African festival in Algiers at the side of the Minister of Information of the Black Panther Party, Eldridge Cleaver, and his wife, Kathleen Cleaver, with whom she's remained close. In Paris, France, she was the co-founder of the 1995 of the Wednesday rallies for Mumia Abu Jamal and Leonard Peltier, rallies that are still ongoing today. Julia is a journalist, a poet, and is currently working on her memoir. Sounds a lot like her dad. And in conversation with her is our very own, I'm going to make it plain like Brother Malcolm likes it, Professor Greg Thomas. Enjoy the program, y'all.
All right, is this thing on? Great, you can hear me. Thank you, Julia, very much for joining us here tonight across the water, and also for the amazing intervention that is this book of poetry, which was quite a surprise for some of us, and certainly a delight for me in particular. And I always feel like I've spent years wanting to meet Julia Wright from ages ago, because ever so often there would be an appearance of her like on the horizon, like a post on HNet or some other kind of text would reach me. I would know nothing about the origins, just that it was something by Julia Wright that would light up the sky in ways that other people weren't really doing in my environment, especially when I was in graduate school, like on the West Coast, like for example, something would come out and there it would be again, So I do expect exactly this caliber of work from Julia Wright. And it's a special pleasure to make contact with this work and also with her personally now as a result of this particular work. So I want to thank her both for being here and also for giving us this extremely valuable and extremely timely text, obviously. And we can begin with a few questions, but first, I know she'd like to say something about finding herself in a bookstore, even if it's virtual.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Okay. I am so half and half envious because I can't touch the books, but so delighted to be in a bookshop because I'm in a book desert here. And my father gave me this love of books, paper books, that is still with me. That being said, I want to thank all the Sankofa hosts, Haley Jarima, Shirikiana Aina, Mary Tu, with whom I've corresponded, and all the staff. And I just need to dedicate what's going to follow to the murdered poet Refat Alarir, to our beloved late Asata Shakur, and to the late Jerry Ward Jr., who passed before giving us his biography of my father. I need to thank Fighting Words for having published this little book. David Soul, Michael Shane, Abayomi Azikiwe, our loyal Pan-Africanist brother for the photos, Tova Fry, who is here, Verbena Lee, Amina Jenkins, the poet, Baba Zaid, the poet, and most of all, Greg Thomas, Professor Greg Thomas, Professor Mark Taylor, who they're both here, from Educators for Mumia and more. And lastly, Susan Abu Hawa and Youssef M. Al-Jamal. Their love for Refat Alarir simply gave me the courage to keep writing.
So we can begin with the first question, if you're ready, Julia.
Yep.
All right, cool. So I'm fascinated by your ongoing relationship with your father, but also your mother, given our recent discussion. And so I was wondering if you could talk about not only your family, but your family as background for your work and the work that you continue to do.
Great question. Central question. The poems would not be there, would not exist without them. My father was hungry. That's what has to be known. By the time I was born, he was no longer biologically hungry. He was, he'd written his 2 books that were bestsellers, and he could eat. But he reached out for the world as if the world were food. And that meant that his daughters were given books were fed books. We were literally fed books. And books were more exciting than toys. In fact, my parents would worry more, they would worry less about my health, my physical health, and more if I didn't read. So the first book I ever read, they paid me to read it. And that was Treasure Island, and I got a treasure of a French bill for 500 francs for reading it. 2 years earlier, my father had given me a copy of Clement's rhyming dictionary at the age of 8, and I hadn't a clue. So that was my father. Oh, yeah. So he wrote poetry all his life. But the last year of his life, he came to haiku. And he was introduced to haiku by a young South African called Sinclair Bayliss. And basically, he did what he always did when he came on something he wanted to engage in. He devoured every haiku he could. He read all the haiku masters, and my feeling, I was around and he was sick, and he couldn't breathe. And my feeling was that the haiku were perfect for him because they're such little poems. They're only 17 syllables, and you can say it in a breath. And it just suited him to write them. Oh, that was what I felt when I watched him write them. My mother, Ellen Poplowitz, Polish, of Polish Jewish extraction, very poor background, member of the CPUSA, where she met my father, lost her family in the Nazi ovens. Very beautiful. She got a screen test made in Hollywood in the 30s, very rebellious. She used to say she was the black sheep of the family, and she got even blacker when she married Richard. She was like Richard. She always went against the grain, and Palestine was all she breathed for, and she was going to visit Gaza when she died.
Wow.
Yeah.
That alone is amazing information. We really, if I take myself as an example, we really hear very little, right, about your mother. And we also hear little about Richard Wright's work in haiku beyond what we know, right? Which is he sort of ends up being the kind of lineage for recent young poets and other poets of the Black tradition who start working in the haiku. A lot of us would associate that with Sonia Sanchez a lot quite right now. We have like a former friend and peer. I know Lizette Norman was working on a giant anthology of Black haiku. And young Black poets are very much into that tradition now and can trace it, certainly directly back to Richard Wright, but never did I hear the circumstances of his connection with an experiment, in haiku. So that's like really, really important information for you to share with us.
Before we go on, I'd like to read something about my father's hunger because it's so important.
Please do.
In fact, it's important for Gaza as well. It's called Time Slip Hunger, to the child who was my father and to the children of Gaza. Richard, the weeds you used to eat when you starved in Mississippi now overrun your old, rusty, empty chair. On your French farm in IE Normandy, you would obsess about portulaca and finally ordered the seeds to plant in alien soil. And I wonder whether your brother Leon and you would nibble on its leaves, driven by hunger, when your own papa abandoned you. And what about the mallow that thrives so wildly today in the planters on my deck? In your hunger, did you seek that out too, just as the children of Gaza at the same age as you? I wanted to say about the haiku, since you thought it was important, Black haiku is important. This is a little story. He tried to teach me how to write the haiku.
Really?
And he'd say, it's easy. You just count the syllables. It's just arithmetic. And my subject in school, arithmetic, math, I was the weakest. So I deferred. And I only started writing haiku years after his death in 2020 when George Floyd, but even Eric Garner and so many before him died by blood choke. Mm-hmm. And that reminded me of my father's last breaths.
Wow.
And that is how I got onto haiku.
I mean, reading the book from cover to cover, some of you may not know that Julia continues to write these poems beyond this particular publication. And she's going to talk about like her process, what inspired her, what they do for her, why she does it. She's certainly going to address that. But some of us who are in her network, we receive these poems like daily or every few days, which is something. And I would say that getting them individually, like a listserv of life, a listserv and a lifeline is great, but also reading this book cover to cover is also a special experience as well. And when you read the books cover to cover, you see this common theme of breath, right, and breathlessness, right, or breathing. And part of the way you see it is because she connects what's going on in Gaza to what has gone on here. For example, with Eric Garner, right, not to mention Mike Brown, et cetera. And in that period, there are two possible quotations from Fanon that could assert themselves, right? There's the like, we can't breathe, that we revolt because we can't breathe from one piece of Fanon. And then there's another piece of Fanon when he's turned full-fledged revolutionary, where he gives us the concept of combat breath, right? Like, in fact. And so it's interesting that there's this concept of breathing and breath and breathlessness, right? And what have you, that really like traverses like this entire collection. Right. And so to hear this information about the origins of this, because you also say that these poems are your sort of extension of haiku that you received from your father. Is that right? That you're opening up the haiku form with these poems.
Let me get the sound up. I'm not hearing. Can you repeat that?
Sure. I know one of the things you said is that these poems and for the baby ancestors in Gaza comes from the haiku form still that you received from your father, that you're opening up and extending it.
Absolutely, yeah. We people, we're so far away, so what can we do? And that was connected to breath. If I could string some haiku together and write some poetry, it would be like giving CPR. It's always connected to breath. And of course, we can talk about the poetry, why the poetry later, but I I think maybe if you would allow me, I'd like to talk about the activism. Do you
Yes,
think?
that's exactly where we go to next. Please do.
Okay. Because I think the activism is very important for the poetry. Um, and Fanon, um, Mumia, uh, the beginning of the activism for me was when I went with my husband to Ghana to work under Nkrumah. And we were put in charge of a newspaper. We were so young, but Nkrumah believed in youth, and he asked us to work on the French version of The Spark.
Ah,
And The Spark uh, was the voice piece for liberation movements, anti-colonial and anti-neocolonial. And that's where we met Cabral, Neto, Samora Machel, and the anti-neocolonial
yes,
leaders,
yes.
people don't talk about, like
Hmm.
Jibo Bakari
Hmm.
and the successors of Felix Moumier,
Hmm.
who was assassinated. So we were very, very young, but we sat at their feet and we learned from them that they could be freedom fighters, but they were also poets.
Yes.
And that was so extraordinary for us because as Marxists, we had been used to thinking, oh, well, let's do the revolution first and the songs will come after. But no, these freedom fighters needed their poetry in order to do the revolution. And I even think of Ho Chi Minh,
Yes.
who, who wrote fantastic
Yes.
poems.
The prison diary of poems.
So,
Yes.
yes. And so we learned that. And the other thing that we learned from these liberation movements is if we are going to put ourselves in their service, give them the mic. Don't talk for them. Uh,
Hmm.
um, uh, and that was learning political humility. Um, and this is what I find in Palestine, that so many of the Westerners, even the liberals, just talk over,
Yes.
you know. So the poetry was trying to get in touch with the Palestinians and give them the mic, if
Hmm.
possible, through writing. It was difficult because it was still me speaking,
Right.
but it was a balance. Um, then later, as you said, as is said, I went to Algiers with Kathleen and Eldridge and Emery, and that's how Mumia came into the picture. Um, there is in the little book a poem called "The Prison's Next Time" that I wrote for Mumia.
Yes.
Uh, at the height of the campus protests here in the US for Palestine. Is there a possibility of hearing Mumia's voice tonight?
Yes. We have it queued up. And so we're going to work on playing it now. So this is one of the poems in the book, but it also exists at prisonradio.org, right? Which is Mumia's site of audio journalism and commentary. And he recited this particular poem by Julia. In fact, he has several links. There's a Julia Wright page, like on Prison Radio, that exemplifies their connection. So now in the back, we are loading up that particular audio of Mumia reading one of Julia's poems in this collection. Obviously invoking Baldwin, right? Okay, we're ready, I think. Oh, 1 minute, sorry. So could you talk about the title while we're queuing up the audio? Like how you came to the title? Oh, she may not be able to hear. Okay, we're ready.
Next time. It's a poem. A sister. The prisons. Next time. It's a poem. A sister, Julia Wright. The daughters and sons of the students of 1968 have learned well the only university course worth its while. The revolution throughout the United States, throughout the territories stolen from the indigenous peoples. Our brave children looking the mass graves of Gaza in the eyes are building the only space worth its while. Liberation zones. They are claiming that their universities divest and cease exchanges with a fascist country, any fascist country, committing genocide. Staring the mass graves in the eye, they uphold Antigenes' unwritten law of humanity and the right to bury with ancestral rites those slain. So it will be the prisons where guards are recycled to the Gazas of the world, the prisons where the slaves of forced labor produce the munitions that kill their comrades, freedom fighting across borders, the prisons where the captured undergo Palestine-tested torture, the prisons where our political prisoners are hidden from sight, the prisons where our daughters and sons from the campuses are being locked up today. It will be the unliberated prisons. Turn next time. You've been listening to the words of Julia Wright and her poem, The Prisons Next Time. With love, not fear. This is Mumia Abu Jamal.
These commentaries are recorded by Prison Radio.
Wow. Normally we hear him sign off saying his own name. It's nice to hear him sign off saying yours. Can you hear us again? Can you still hear us, Julia?
Yes.
Okay. He's not a bad reader, huh?
He's a radio commentator.
He's such an orator, yes. Could you actually say a little bit more about your involvement with Mumia's support over time? And also, I believe something happened recently where a street sign on the street that was named for him in Paris was vandalized or something?
Oh my goodness. That's a surprise question.
Sorry.
I've got fantastic news tonight.
Okay.
Breaking news. I just found out today that the city, the suburban city just outside Paris,
Saint-Denis.
where the street is dedicated to Mumia, has changed mayor.
Oh.
And the previous mayor was a socialist. And in France, socialists are like Democrats. You get the message.
Yes.
And the new mayor is somebody we met
Okay.
who was so much in favor of dedicating the street to Mumia. I am so overjoyed.
Great.
He is was elected both by the French Communist Party, and La France Insoumise. How would you translate that? The party very much on the left, a very revolutionary party in France called Unbending France.
Okay.
And he was elected by those parties. And that means Mumia Abu Jamal Street in Paris will be protected.
Nice. Great. Thank you for the news. It's Sankofa first, at least in North America, right? Cool. We talked about as well how there are a number of poems that might answer the question best. The question like, why Palestine? You know, for you at this particular point?
Yeah. Well, because of my mother, may she rest in peace, because of my father's hunger, that is so echoed today in Palestine, because of stolen land
Yes.
that we in the United States, be it the African Americans, the indigenous peoples, have suffered from. Our stolen language. I mean, we have no language. When we speak, we stand outside of our language. We speak a language that is a foreign language. Our maternal language, my maternal language, I'm speaking English American, is a foreign language to me. Where is my original language? I was looking at my father's essay today, Memories of My Grandmother, that is published with The Man Who Lived Underground. And he says, because he says to his uncle, "Uncle, how does German sound?" I asked. "Why, I imagine it sounds to a German just like English sounds to you," he explained. So my father says, "I wish I could forget English for a few minutes just so I could listen to it and hear how it sounds."
Yes. Yes.
I piped up brightly. The array of elderly Negroes, my blood relatives on the porch there, were struck dumb that summer afternoon. They stared at me. Then my uncle leaned forward. "That boy is coming to no good end." So, yeah, just standing outside of our own language to see what it sounds like. And then, like Rifat Al-Lahrir, like George Jackson, like Fanon, to have the audacity to write in the language of the master by reclaiming it, the better to reclaim it, to subvert it, to make a masterpiece of our own out of it. Wow. So yeah, that is such a challenge. And then the last reason for Palestine is the children.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes back to Cabral when he said, the only people we owe accounts to are the ancestors, our children, and those who are not yet born. So, yeah, the children and the rate at which they are being targeted, not only now in Gaza, but in Iran, as we saw with the massacre of Minab,
Right.
uh,
Schoolgirls.
all these reasons, Palestine, because Palestine is ground zero, and we mustn't forget Palestine, even if the conflict is spreading. So I did have a few poems if you want to hear them.
Yes. We want to hear them. I'm going to pretend like I didn't suggest any of these. Please do.
Okay. Let me see. The homeless dead, may they rest in Palestine. Yesterday was Earth Day, and worldwide we honored our assaulted mother with sacred rites. Yesterday was Earth Day, and the media that serves the corporations that deplete the earth sent viral photos of Gaza C-sectioned, of Gaza giving birth to mass graves. Yesterday was Earth Day, and the bleeding mud where the tortured, executed, and plasticized bodies of the daughters and sons of Palestine were exhumed, revealed an inhuman double bind. Not only do the Zionists, helped by the USA, commit genocide to steal an ancient land, but that stolen soil is at the same time declared terra non grata for the native burial of the thousands despoiled, now ancestors, roaming the ruins of their homes. There is a new class called the homeless dead.
That's amazing. This is
Maybe
such a
this one.
huge theme, Julia, throughout the book again as well. Like the politics of mourning, the politics of burial, commemoration, like in funerals, that we can relate to across these two traditions, that are almost one. And it's just an amazing theme to track, from the beginning of the poetry collection to the end. And that's such a fine example of it. So thank you for
Right.
that one. And please continue.
Well, there's also for Sadi Barka, it's called Lament for an Old Palestinian Gravedigger.
Yes.
Silence except for the bombs, no prayers, no processions in the cemetery, no relatives, just one old gravedigger, his hair as white as the phosphorus they send. Sadi Barka cries for those who are not there to mourn, cries because he has to dig mass graves alone, cries because the women and children he mostly buries have done nothing wrong, cries because today he must fit 45 souls in 6 square feet, cries because in the land where graveyards are running out of space, there is no welcome for the ancestors, cries because there is no one to listen. Oh, yeah. And there's this quote you'll find in the book that really struck me. Because, yeah, to give the mic to this Palestinian called Wassam Rayan, and I don't know if he's alive or dead now, but he was in prison. He was released, but not after having been tortured. And he just says this: there are things one simply cannot talk about. There are words I can't even say to anyone, even to myself.
Yes.
So, that would be the whole challenge of the poetry from where we are. If those we are giving the mic to, cannot say, because it's so unspeakable, what do we write? Oh. So, yeah, we've spoken about that, Greg. We talked about it, about why the poetry.
Yes. And is poetry remedy enough
Yeah,
in
because
these
you
times?
use that word remedy because that's George Jackson's word, right?
That's right. In one of the letters from
Right.
Soul Dad Brother on neo-slavery, it says we have to recognize and properly identify the problem and recognize that we are prisoners of war. And once we summon up the courage to recognize what we're up against, then we're adequately positioned to make the remedy, right?
Yeah. So, how can poetry be a remedy at all, given what we're faced with? So, I mean, I'm still battling with that. I don't have any real clear-cut answer. All I can say is that um, we in America, we have a culture of death that is so enormous. Um, the endless wars, the death by incarceration, the mass shootings,
Yes.
um, the death that we haven't mourned from the pandemic.
Yes.
Um, uh, it's all accumulated, complicated mourning as a nation that we are faced with. So there are 5 stages of mourning, we're told, okay. Uh, but then we also have found out that there is a 6th stage, past acceptance of, of the death or of death, that is called transcendence. And I feel when I write my poems that sometimes I get into that space of transcendence in the sense that I can start to hope. I can write through the death or through even my own personal losses, my sister, and get to a place of hope. Um, okay, so that helps me. The poetry helps me do that. It's, hope, reparation, love, self-love. That's all through poetry. And I think Asata is a marvelous
Yes.
example as a poet.
Yes. Her presence is felt in this book as well. Yes.
Um, then the other aspect of it that I find that healing, not only in reading poetry, but in writing it, is I can get a hold on my what Thich Nhat Hanh calls strong emotions. And nowadays, the rage is uppermost. I mean, and we um, in the campaign for Mumia, the campaigns against ICE, everywhere, abolition, the rage we have. So what do we do with our rage? Do we put it in a cage? Is that the answer? So how do we deal with it? So I found that as far as poetry was concerned, it helped. And I did have a couple of poems trying to explain it. Here is one called Letter to My Anger.
Yes.
And it's dedicated to Thich Nhat Hanh. To my anger. I love you, my anger. I love you in all seasons. I love you in the summer when you fuel the fire of dusty marches, when we shout out for freedom on the scorching rooftops. I love you in the winter when, in spite of the ice and the wind, the furnaces they light for us still burn. I love you, my anger, as my own child. And I would take you in my arms and soothe you and ask, what is the matter? And you would let me know your pain. And
Stunning.
this is your poem, Greg.
This is the first poem that introduced me to this project when I received it via email from our fellow friend and comrade Mark. And I had no idea what was going on. And this is the poem that put me in contact with Julia Wright for the first time, virtually, right, like and physically. And it blew me away. I was screenshotting it and sharing it with anyone I could. And little did I know this book would come through next. But it's great that you're going to read it now because it's actually not in the collection. And maybe we can talk about the selection process as well later. But please do read this poem.
Okay. The children are waiting. This was a Black August poem. 2 generations ago already, George Jackson told us fascism is already here. Did we hear? Lynn Stewart spoke of the twilight of evil. Did we see? Antonio Gramsci let us know that when the old world refuses to leave and the new world is slow to arrive, there is an in-betweenness where monsters are born. Frantz Fanon gave us the weapon to defeat the colonial monster curled up in our minds. We will not dignify the abyss with too long a stare, because our children and the children of our children stand ancestrally ready on the other side.
Okay. Julia, could you talk about, I think there probably is some curiosity about the press and how they came to be the publisher, but also the selection process, since some poems went in and some didn't. I don't know if you're ready to talk a little bit about that. And there are also some YouTube links with a lot of the poems that seem to ground us in a certain way, or URLs.
Well, I'll talk about the YouTube links first and the press afterwards, because the reason for the YouTube links actually is what I was going to just talk about. And that is, I'd like, this sounds really a bit cheesy. I'm sorry, I apologize in advance, but Rifat Al-Arir's kite so is so powerful as an image for poetry, for Palestinian poetry, and even the poetry that we can try to write. Because it's about the unspeakability of the horror on the ground that we are made to see, that we see every day. And the fact that the kite can defy gravity and rise above the ground and rise above the horror and transcend the horror. And for a time, at least, even maybe reach a place where birds fly and cannot be shut down. And this image that Rifat Al-Arir gave us is so healing. And I can understand why the IOF soldiers try to shoot down the kites.
Yes.
So the YouTube links I put at the end of each poem are to ground each poem in the horror. So that the reader can measure how much the kite of the poem has flown above it. It's very difficult. I mean, it's, the genocide in Gaza has made it nearly an impossible feat, but we do it.
Right.
And speaking about Rifat Al-Arir, I do have a few poems for him.
Yes, let's listen.
I have a haiku for him. The trees bloom again. The smile of a lost poet reaches out past time.
My favorite one.
And this is difficult. As you all know, Rifat Al-Arir was targeted and killed by the IOF 3 years ago. I would like to say tonight that Barry Weiss was very instrumental into giving his name to the IOF.
Oh, really?
Yes. When he was killed, he was first buried, the pieces of him that could be found, in a makeshift grave on December 6, 2023. He was then moved to a proper grave in February 2025. Very recently, a stone was placed on this grave showing the family names and date of murder, because other members of his family were shot alongside of him.
Yes.
But the grave to this day is hard to reach, and the tombstone was difficult to put on the grave, not because it was heavy, but because the grave is now located inside the yellow line. So this is for Asada. This is for Rifat Al-Arir, but I thought of Asada and I thought of her words. Love is contraband in prison.
Yeah, okay.
Love is the acid that eats away all bars. If I were in Gaza, I would lay down on your grave a small flask of pungent olive oil and a leather bag of fragrant za'atar both as contraband to the Zionists as your poetry continues to be. I would add to the offering a handful of your favorite strawberry seeds and these words, a kite flown with love, the love those who killed you are incapable of, the love Asata speaks of, the love without which poetry would not exist. And this, the paper birds of Gaza, and I wrote before or after writing this poem, because I keep a sort of a journal, I was so shocked by the cruelty of the IOF soldiers against the children of Gaza, playing with the kites, inspired by Refat Alarir, that I was unable to finish this poem yesterday and left it hanging. Just as there can be cliff hanging, there can be horror hanging when words fail. In memory of Refat Alarir, trailing the strings of Refat Alarir's tale in a sky of smoke, the children of Gaza believe in their power to fight off the bombs with iridescent kites that carry their dreams of flying home as paper birds. IOF soldiers fireball the kites, trying to kill the dreams as they seize toys left behind and decorate their tanks with the trophies of the childhood they shot down. Orphaned of its child, each stolen toy owns the spirit of his dream. And each child's dream escapes and flies higher than the bombs, higher, always higher, out of reach, out of sound, outward bound, towards an unassailable playground. And there is something about poetry, and we get back to the breathing.
Yes.
That is, poetry is a voice of the body. It is, and that would be very close to Fanon.
Yes.
I believe.
Absolutely.
Right. And there is this poem by a Palestinian called Mohamed Musa. And it's very short. And he says, I was trying to reach you, but the war wouldn't let my feet walk towards you. And I'm still trying to reach you, even without my feet, even before the war reaches you.
Wow. That's a poet from Gaza, is that correct? Am I thinking about
Yes.
the same figure? Yes.
Yes.
I met some of
And-
his descendants in Amman because I believe his father was one of the figures who met with Malcolm X during Malcolm's trip to Gaza.
Ah,
Yes.
okay.
So it's a nice
Wow.
thread.
So I'm always afraid when I read words from a Palestinian to ask whether he's still alive.
Right.
Right. So then there is, again, around the theme of the poetry being the expression of the tethered body,
Yes.
a poem called My Body is Gaza.
Yes.
My body is Gaza. My nights toss and turn me as the oceans push the flotilla. My dreams hum with the song mocking the tormenting buzz of the drones. My day is set to Palestinians' hour. My hope is a clock that won't stop. My very hunger is self-aware. My food is swallowed on condition there is something, if only a poem I can daily share. My body is Gaza. Gaza is on my mind.
And given the Sankofa series by the same name as the last line in the poem, that's really a wonderful connection here.
Yes, I'm so glad to find out that even at a distance we can be connected that way. And now Asada.
Aha.
I did write a poem for her when she passed. Um, Love eats away your death. September 27th, 2025. You are the mother of all ancestors. You let us know our dead, as many as they are, have lost their shackles, and though we weep, we can let them sleep. You reminded us that the living, those still chained throughout the darkened dungeons, need all our energy because they are alive and can still be saved. But you, Asada, you are alive in our hearts, but you walk at our side, but you whisper to us that just as love eats away all bars, love eats away your death.
I know it's getting late for not only yourself, but others in the audience in different time zones. And we don't want to keep you awake too long. So we can decide if when we want to move to Q&A, if there are no other poems you're ready to read right now. What do you think?
Let's see. Just one poem for Hope, and I will. I promised Mark a poem.
Great. The rest of you can
Mark.
get your questions ready.
Poetry in a bottle, because I wanted to end on a note of hope, and that's where the transcendence is.
And you've written a really great forward. And I feel like that poem in particular sort of encapsulates a lot of the work that you do in the forward. So I'm happy to hear it.
The fishermen along the Egyptian coast near Gaza's border know how to fill bottles with just enough grains and seeds so they will float and reach the shores of Palestine. The people of Egypt need no algorithm to gauge the currents so the bottles they send will not get lost. That is poetry to me, filling the page with just enough words and rhyme and hope so they will arrive at the destination of the mind that hungers for them.
All right. Should we move to the Q&A period? Yes, let's go. Let's see, who's going to moderate, or we're just going to stand and deliver? Okay, yes, there's the mic. All right. Any questions from anyone?
We can start with yours, the poetry collection process and the
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you just reiterate it yourself there? Thank you.
I just mentioned we can start with the question that was asked regarding how the collection was built and how the press came about.
Thank you.
Yes. So I apologize for not having answered that one, and that is an important one. And wow, because actually, October 7th happened, and all I was doing was this journal through poetry and sending it to the Mumia Abu Jamal listserv and a few others, right? And it was more just to tame the horror of what was happening, and keep us, keep us. I can't find the word. Just to be able to keep on keeping on,
Yes.
and then, and Tova is here. Tova had the splendid idea of working it out with somebody she works with, fighting words. And I almost wish Tova could explain better than me. Why not take these random poems that Julia is sending like bits of journal and publish them on the listserv, but regularly through Writing Words, online magazine, Writing Words. And I was delighted. Oh, wow. And they've been doing that for the whole time of the genocide, regularly. And then last autumn, in autumn of last year, Tova writes to me and says, the editor of Writing Words would like you and him to select 20 of your poems for a little book. And that's how it happened. And I didn't reach out because that was not why I was writing the poems. It was more like push-ups, mental push-ups.
Okay.
and sharing them with my comrades.
Yes.
So yes, fighting words, Tova. That's absolutely it. And I am so grateful to them for having done that, because it's exactly the kind of little book I imagined, something that a protester, an activist can slip in his or her pocket
Yes.
and go to a protest with.
Yes.
It's just down my alley. Of course, I don't have a copy yet, but that's a whole other story.
That's crazy. All right. Thank you. Other questions? Brian, don't make me call on you. Yes, you. Okay. This is Brian Gilmore, another poet, a fellow poet.
It's an honor to meet you, Miss Wright. Great admirer of your father's work, and I'm very intrigued by your own career now, I must say. So I appreciate this forum and everything. But I have like a two-part question. First question is, did your father ever spend any time in Washington, D.C.? And the second question is, I'm aware that your father was constantly under surveillance, and I'm just wondering what's the best source of finding the information out other than go to the government website? I mean, maybe a researcher might have more accurate information. Thank you again for your poetry and your life's work here.
Thank you. I'm not in Washington, D.C. currently. I'm speaking from across the pond, across the waters. Okay. Okay. I would love to especially visit Sankofa Bookshop. I would love to do that. Maybe sometime in the future. Okay, to your second part. That is a huge question. Maybe the subject of a whole webinar. How can I begin? I'm writing about it. This was the Cold War. And to be Black, let's put it this way, to have been red and to be Black and to maintain relationships, close relationships with cold reds was something that placed you under surveillance. No doubt about it. 100%, 200%. And my father was not the only one. The Cold War had its own rules that were illegal, and we learned that through COINTELPRO as well. We don't know half of it because we never get all the files.
Don't we know that today? From the Epstein class.
Right. So for the moment, I can send you to Addison Gale. I can't remember the name of the biography he wrote on my father, but if you look up Addison Gale, you'll find his book on my father where he reviews the information that he got from the FBI on him.
Okay. All right. I know there are a lot of Black artists and Black politicos in DC who like to do histories of Black artistic communities in DC and Black political communities in DC. And so I think part of the question also was, do you know, in all of your own research and family history, if Richard Wright ever spent time in DC himself?
Okay. I hadn't heard that properly. Did he spend time in DC?
And given the surveillance, it's like a really loaded question now, right? Yeah.
Right. Offhand, I couldn't tell you yes or no. Mm-hmm. I know Chicago, yes. New York, yes. Even New Mexico, yes.
Ah.
Yes. He met Steinbeck down there in the 40s. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, Washington, D.C. does not ring a bell. Now, that does not mean I'm no expert. I'm no academic expert, right? But it doesn't ring a bell for the moment.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Other questions from the audience? Yes, Shrikiana. When she was talking about the Ghana biography, I was like thinking of you and your film. So this is Shrikiana Aina of the Sankofa Project.
Hi.
incredible filmmaker.
Well-
We have to talk more about her films that connect with some of your comments and some of your own trajectory as well.
I'm really happy to be in this forum as well, Ms. Wright. It's just such a pleasure, and I have to credit our wonderful organizers here at Sankofa for pulling this off. I wish I can say I had a part in organizing this, but thanks Greg and Maritu and Hailey and everybody for making this possible. And I am fascinated by your memories in Ghana. And could you spend a little more time talking about that? Because, you know, there's so much, Ghana is so central to so much in the decolonizing project, world project that's going to go on and on and on and on. And understanding that moment is so important. So if you could speak more about that, it'd be really nice.
Yes.
Oh, I'd love to. I love to speak about Ghana. Those were the days. First of all, what struck me was what a cultural hub it was. Kwame Nkrumah gave great importance to culture, and not only African culture, African American culture. He invited Nikki Giovanni, and Nikki Giovanni came over to visit my husband and I. He invited, of course, Maya Angelou. She came, and she was the person elected to guide Malcolm X around Accra. Malcolm X came, and we had the honor of inviting him to lunch to our house. That was almost on the eve of his departure back to the States to be killed.
Wow.
Another example of Kwame Nkrumah's love of culture, he invited Philippa Schuyler to play the piano for him. Philippa was the daughter of George Schuyler and a white Southern woman he married. And my father wrote a play on, it was like about the story of Philippa, but that's another subject. The real Philippa became a piano playing prodigy, and Kwame Nkrumah invited her. And I don't know whether it was on her way to Accra or coming back to the United States, she was shot down over Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Those were there's a word for it in English, ebulliescent.
Okay.
We were drunk almost with the feeling that this was happening.
Yes.
Socialism in Africa was happening. What we did not understand was that the Western powers would not let go, especially because of the socialist aspect of it, because of the Pan-Africanist aspect of it, and because Kwame Nkrumah welcomed the liberation movements. And all of those who were part of that work around the liberation movements in Ghana, including us, were on the blacklist for the soldiers to ferret out when the coup d'etat happened.
Oh.
And that's how we were arrested. Um,
Okay.
the hatred against Nkrumah was also created, generated, and this is what I love, and I'm writing about. The writing of one book. That is the power of books.
Wow.
Neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism.
Okay.
And what historians like Vijay Prasad have now revealed, because he did the research, the State Department and the CIA made feverish notes on the publication of that book. And the feeling is that it was the publication of that book and all the research about the companies and the monopolies, the foreign monopolies, the tentacles throughout Africa, the screen companies, everything documented with charts, a bit like what Francesca Albanese is doing for the genocide in her report today.
Okay.
That attracted the attention of, and it was the CIA and MI6 with the help of the Ghanaian police that had been trained by the English that engineered the coup d'etat.
That's a book that's in store, correct? I think I see it every day when I walk in here. And also, we can confirm, I'm pretty sure that that's also one of the titles of the more than 99 books found in the prison cell of George Jackson after his assassination. So really interesting connections. Right. Okay, we'll have to continue the conversation about Ghana and also connect you with Shirikiana's film work, right, on the subject as well. But we have another question here. If we have the mic. Who's on mic duty? Okay, yes.
Hi, Ms. Wright. I'm Jeff Kennedy. How are you? All right. My question to you is there someone who stands out within that period of time, even within your father's time, to Malcolm X visiting, that you believe remains sort of an untold story that you would have really have liked, that person's leadership would have really stood out, but because of the observation or the surveillance that you were that everyone was under, this person particularly stood out, that someone's story that you believe still needs to be told?
Oh,
Interesting question.
that's a beautiful question, but I think, you know what comes to my mind? I think lots of additional stories need to be told about all our icons that have not been told. I don't know if I'm being clear here. I'm thinking about how much has been censored about Malcolm,
Yes.
my father, about Martin Luther King, about so many of them, so that they can be shaped, molded into a certain narrative that is acceptable today. So that I would spread your question over perhaps exploring facets of the lives of more than one person that have not been revealed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing that for my father.
Wonderful.
Because you know how it goes. They try to. There's this multiple death thing. They try to kill you before you die, then they kill you, or they'd rather not kill you because it's messy, but if they have to, they do.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, you become a martyr, so they have to kill the martyr.
Yes.
In the eyes of those who think so highly of the person.
Mm-hmm.
So there are multiple death blows dealt
Mm-hmm.
to one single person.
Mm-hmm.
And I know my father went through that. I know Malcolm's. Trump tried to dump the FBI sex tapes last year
Right.
of Martin.
King.
Martin.
Yes.
Right. So it's ongoing. Offhand, I can't think of one person. I can think of facets of many of our wonderful icons that who are only human. And I think part of the trick, the ploy, is to try to convince us that if we have an icon, that icon has to be perfect.
Yes.
And that's not true. None of them were perfect. And that's not even the point. The point is they were able to do what they did in spite of them not being perfect. And that is a definition of a hero.
Interesting
So
take.
did I answer somewhat your question? I'm sorry.
Yes. And that would be that would be an incredible book project too, right? A book project on the facets of a whole series of figures, right? Incredible. Incredible. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, in the back. Quiet.
Good evening. My name is Lillian Green. I want to thank you for what you've shared this evening. And I'm wondering if you personally feel that you are under surveillance in terms of the work that you are continuing to do. And I wanted to thank you for the point that you made earlier about love is contraband in prison. Because I feel like love is contraband out here in the world, particularly among Black people loving each other. So I want to thank you for that, but also to ask the former question. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, they say Gaza is an open air prison, and Mumia says we're all in prison, whether we're in prison or outside. So I agree with you. Whether I'm under surveillance, yes. It's it's so commonplace and so banal to be under surveillance. I take it for granted that I'm under surveillance. You spoke about that little did you see that little film, Greg, with that the FOP made of me?
Yes, about the street sign vandalism.
Yes.
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 Maybe I could tell them there was some background. So there was some coverage of some like young incel type right wingers who vandalized the street sign on the street name for Mumia on in the suburb outside of Paris called Saint Denis, right? And I remember when Julia was also instrumental in the activism, the collective activism that brought about that renaming, and some of us remember it because there was actually some sort of objection in U.S. Congress about how another country was renaming the street, which was interesting. But when it was vandalized recently, they made a little statement and they used an image of Julia speaking at the moment it was dedicated, a younger Julia with the face blurred out. So it was entirely odd in every way. But yes, continue, Julia.
Yeah, they put my image in a broken TV that was trashed on the floor, and they had me speaking from there. It was yeah, okay, no comment. Yeah, loss of energy, loss of energy. Yeah, they try to trigger you. They try to find a way of triggering you. I suppose because I grew up in a Cold War household, and later COINTELPRO, I just take it in my stride. I think that's my answer.
Okay. All right. Other questions before we close? None here?
Maybe after you close.
Okay. So, you have a question? Oh, okay. All right. So before we hand it off to Haile, in closing, could you tell us a little bit about that picture to the right of you and maybe update us on the status of your memoir?
Okay. That's Richard. It's a photo I didn't know existed, so I framed it.
Okay.
Young. He was young then. And the memoir, somebody wrote to me and asked me the same question, and my answer was, I've hit the ground writing. So I'm doing a lot of writing.
Yes.
Yeah, in between poems. Yeah.
Okay. It's interesting that those two projects have become intertwined.
Yeah. Yes. Two worlds, but they're in many ways they're connected.
Yes.
Aren't they?
Yeah.
Aren't they, Greg?
Especially given the way you opened by talking about your mother and your father and your connection to them in all of this work, right? So for you to be writing these two projects at the same time, it's sort of like a kind of symmetry even.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thank you again. Some of the audience, as well as Julia, is coming at us from a much later time zone. So we've kept her up like really, really late, but we appreciate everything here. I had a fantastic time, and I hope you did too. And so I'm going to pass the mic to Haile to close us out.
Good evening, my sister. How are you? Where is she? She's right there. Excuse me. I see you. I see you. I don't know if you see me. Thank you, my sister. My wife, Shurikiana, and me are the students of your father. For me, I studied film, but I'm a student of not film books or film professors, but I'm a student of Frantz Fanon, Richard Wright, and Sterling Brown. So I am.
There you go.
Okay, sister, I see you. I'm not high tech. I do films, but I don't know about this digital world. So anyway, I just want to say to you that, you know, we wanted to have you a long time ago, but you have to know that economically it's not easy for us to, you know, to bring you across the ocean. But in my view, I want to do an official invitation. You know, thanks to Greg, this connection is so important. Anytime you come this way, you have to let us know. We're family. and then we can really, we don't mind getting you from New York or somewhere if you're nearby, or if you happen to be in the vicinity, you can afford to come here. This is your house, this is your home, and we would be very happy to have you. Yeah, thank you. And I know my wife.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, my sister. I know
Brother.
my wife is in her head now cooking because she might want to film you, and I think she would have filmed you, and we're gonna make sure through Greg we send you her film because I think the two of you cross path a lot. It's a very, very important event we're having today, that beyond your substance and your content, the family connections is what I felt very emotional about. And hopefully we will wait for you. We will, if Shirikiana wants to go to where you are and film you, that's what I'm going to be poking about. She's the fire, I'm the poker. I'll try to poke for for such an event to happen, because you'll be so precious for us, because Ghana is also, that period you were in Ghana is a serious time. And Shirikiana went there knowing it from her upbringing. Her father, was also one of the people who went, and that place is in her heart, and I'm sure you have a lot of story to tell, and we would appreciate if that happens. And so I just want to thank you, Greg, for making this happen, and Maritu and everybody who worked hard. And you stay strong. I know they are spying on you, but but I think you are a very strong sister. They're not going to make any difference, in my view, listening to you. So thank you again from my heart, my sister.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, Julia. We'll be in touch. All of us.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone on Zoom as well. Peace.